We're live on Spiritual Psychics TV with Paul Bannister and his guests for Spiritual Talk.
Hi everybody and welcome to Spiritual Talk live here on our home at SBTV. It's fantastic to be here. We have another great guest and I'm so excited. I say this every time, but I've been really lucky. I've had some great people say yes to coming on and sharing their experiences, and tonight is no exception. Guys, before we go anywhere, guys, just let us know you're watching. We'd love you to share as well. The more support we get, the better it is for our channel. If you'd like to follow us and subscribe on YouTube, that would also be fantastic. But for tonight's show, if you don't mind sharing it out, that would be brilliant. But come on, say hello. Let us know you're live and watching with us. It's a Thursday evening. It's a beautiful evening. Come and join us. We've got a really interesting conversation tonight. We have a special lady coming on that's done so much investigation in and around the paranormal and also many other subjects. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things. I'm quite excited. Hi, Karen. Karen saying hello. Good to see you, Karen. Let us know where you're coming in from, guys, as well, while we load up and share the program out. Hey, Chris. Good to see you there, coming in from Wales. Good old Wales. Good to see you on. Let us know where you're coming in from, guys. Kath, she's coming in. Hi. Hi, Kath. She's watching from Edinburgh. Fantastic photo there, Kath. And Krish. Hi, Krish. Good to see you again. I love that cat as well, Krish. Great picture. Yeah, so let's go straight to bring our guest in, guys, shall we? Tonight's guest is Mary Marshall. Now, Mary is an intuitive medium, but she's also so much more. She's also an investigator and researcher. As a paranormal investigator and researcher with over 20 years experience, Mary is the founder and director of the Paranormal MD Investigations. It's a scientific and technological based organization located in the Northwest Illinois. The Paranormal MD is not limited to ghosts and haunted. She is respected within several fields that include paranormal, cryptozoology, which I'm going to ask about, and she's also a psychic medium. And she is involved with organizations called, again, I hope I pronounce this properly, MUFON, which deals with UFOs. Her insightfulness and ability to connect the dots has allowed her to capture the knowledge and share it in a no-nonsense way that is understandable and relatable. Good evening, Mary, and welcome to Spiritual Talk.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
We've got MJ saying hello as well, coming all the way from America too. So it's good that we've got some American people joining us as well, coming to join our conversation. And we have got so many things we'd like to talk about. Mary, with Spiritual Talk, we just touch on a bit of how people get started in their chosen field. You're a medium, but you're so much more.
I am. You know what? It's so interconnected for me. It's sometimes like, how did one thing start and the other end? Nothing ever ended, just sort of segued from one thing into the next, and I love it. It's just also curious
because you have that scientific mind as well, which
yeah.
Then there's a great quote, guys, and if you get a chance, Mary has also done a pre-recorded interview with me on Spiritual Talk TV on our YouTube page. Go and have a look at that later if you get a chance. But you do mention about ghosts, and your quote was, it's not I believe in ghosts, it's just I want to know what it's made up of, how it's created. I love that.
Yeah. And because it's so true. You know, you get to a certain point of, especially with the age of internet, right? There are just how many EVPs can you have? How many videos? How many of this? And it early on, like in the early 2000s, the focus for me changed from trying to prove, that ghosts exist to what are ghosts? How do they do what they do? And so that started to turn my attention, and then basically all the different types of phenomena, turned my attention to the sciences, and then quickly got into studying physics, even things like studying what is sound, because you're talking about an EVP. What is an EVP? How do they do that? How do we not hear it if it's sound? So, all kinds of things like that that drew me into the sciences. And then later on, kind of going public with the psychic mediumship. And that was a little delayed. And the reason for that is because I teach paranormal studies out of a college. And still, out of all the high strangeness, right? That is something that people are very much on the fence. And I wanted them to come into the classroom and listen and learn, hopefully learn something, and turn them into, exploring the topics. And if I would have said, oh, and by the way, I'm a psychic medium, you lose people,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that kind of came later after the career of more being known as the science girl was
Yeah.
established.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But it gives you a fantastic insight into what's. Does it though? I was just about to say it gives you a fantastic insight to what's going on, but does it really? Does it get in the way in a way?
It can get in the way for the psychic mediumship, only because there's that eternal argument in the head of this is
Yeah.
impossible. How is this happening? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Despite there being one of the most studied phenomena out there. Because the interesting thing with psychic mediums is you can perform the scientific method with them. You can take and put them in lab formats, repeat the same experiment over and over, and, get brain waves, test brain waves and all these things. And so thus it's become the most studied because other types of phenomena, ghost, shadow people, uh, are so fleeting. Now you see it, now you don't, and it's random and it's very hard to test.
I just want to remind people this is your show, guys. This is your opportunity to ask Mary about any paranormal experiences that you may have, what they might be, whether it's a haunting or, and we talked about shadow people on the pre-recorded video that we did. And that's a really interesting phenomenon in itself. But before we go too much further, I wanted to ask you about cryptozoology. What
Yes.
is that?
It is the study of unknown creatures, and I say creatures or beings. Um, my personal take on it is to maybe say more in the idea of beings than creatures, but you have everything from Bigfoot to uh, Dog Man or Wolf Man. Here in the States, we have something called the Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah.
And that came up because of there was a wolf-like dog man, and it was appearing on a road called Bray Road in Wisconsin, one of the
Right.
states here.
Right. Right. We've had something similar in where we live in East Anglia in the UK. We had a beast dog, a black dog, and if you saw the black dog, it means you're going to die. It was a legend that
Wow.
comes from the Victorian times. There's plenty of stories. AJ's asked a great question, actually. Why do we call them ghosts when in reality they are spirit?
To me, that's one and the same. What reasonably, because even if you looked at like from a religious aspect, right?
Yeah.
In the original translation of a lot of, prayers and well, if you involve the Bible as well, but you would, when people prayed, way back in the day, they would say Holy Ghost, not Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And so it's really one and the same, but it's just an evolution of our use of the language.
What about types of ghosts, Mary, where we see apparitions? Sometimes we see apparitions. Is that a soul? Is it I kind of think, is it a time lapse or is it like a shell energy of somebody that's not there anymore? It's caught in time. There's so many. Is there a category of different types of ghosts?
Absolutely. You could break it down into uh, 7 or 8 categories, and in that category would include something like demons and angels, and elementals. But let's sticking to the ghost spirit side of things. You have intelligent, which is interactive in just exactly what it says, intelligent and interactive. So that's what I know this is going to sound like a strange way to say it, but a live ghost versus residual. Residual entities, that's a much trickier category. And I think it can really go across several things. It isn't always the same reason. One time it could be a residual trapped energy because we do have that, right? And we have it in objects as well. The other thing with that is that I do honestly believe that a significant amount of what we would consider residual activity or residual ghosts could very well be dimensional crossover. Could be with a multiverse type of theory, and looking at even copy universes. But you have to really look at things like time as well, right? We tend as humans to look at time very linear, one in front of the other goes forward. But really all of time, first of all, is a man-made construct. We were trying to figure out what, when do we need to plant and eat and animals and so forth for survival. But then getting beyond that is really looking at the universe, and all of time is occurring at once. It is just occurring in a different time and space than ours. So in a sense, you could say in a different dimension or a different realm than ours. And so there is that crossover often, sometimes intentional and sometimes accidental, from one dimension into the other. And what I mean by that is we have many instances in which people have had experiences, and then you will capture an EVP, an electronic voice phenomena. And I use this example because it's a great one, and I apologize because I have repeated this other times, but there was many, many years ago, and this is what got my thinker going. There was a ghost show on television, and they were doing a hotel where a princess had stayed. She had the room and a whole wing of the hotel. So they were in there investigating, and they had their audio recorders in hand and were asking, Princess, are you here? Often we do that, right? Who's here? Who, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So they were like, Princess, are you here? And they did not hear it, was not audible to their ears at the time, but upon playback, this exchange went on with the princess. So when they said, Princess, are you here? And she even had this, what would be an unusual for an accent here in the States. And it was something like, well, of course I am. Where are you? And that just, what? That's your first response. Wait a minute, what? So you have to think, is she sitting in, 1910 in her bed and hearing some voice say, Princess, are you here? And either she's thinking it's somebody on the other side of the bedroom door, or she's worried about her own sanity at that point of answering, of course I am. Where are you? That one exchange puts forth the idea of, and there has been exploration of this since, that it starts to be, who's the ghost, us or them? Sometimes it is a very clear when you have an intelligent exchange, but even then, sometimes you have to wonder, is this a dimensional crossover? So are we appearing as ghosts to somebody else when we're trying to make communication? Sometimes, and vice versa.
That whole concept just hurts my head.
Right? It's
trying to understand the reality of a multi-dimensional universe where we can connect with different levels at the same time. Life is life and anything is possible. But one of the things I wanted to touch on this evening is, we're mediums, and this channel is based around spiritual and psychics TV. Now, we connect with our loved ones. So could there be some kind of crossover here? I mean, the existence of a spirit world, in my experience, I believe it's around us, not some place that we go to. Has there been any kind of evidence to suggest that there is more than?
Scientifically, the only evidence, I'll say this first, would be the idea of multiple dimensions.
Yeah.
Now, how that's going to play out, we don't have enough knowledge yet. Meaning, is it going to be something more like string theory? Are we talking about, there's various theories out there. The
Yeah.
one thing I think we can say is there is multiple dimensions. I do not believe as a result of, and this goes to some of the technical stuff too, like trying to get EMF and, those types of things, that they exist full time in our dimension. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
And it's much like, even if people are, maybe religious again, or they're Christian and they say, well, my grandma in heaven, and they look up, well, where is heaven? It's another dimension. So it's sort of, you can reference it as a soul or a core energy,
Yeah.
depending upon belief system, right? Regardless of what we call it, it exists, that type of thing. And so I do believe that they are in another dimension. And as a psychic medium, I mean, I feel that way as well, because you're kind of calling them forth. We do not obviously see and hear them as flesh and blood people here. It is a spirit. And so they enter into our realm, because sometimes you do get maybe not super strong connections as a medium, or, those types of things. Or maybe they don't want to talk to the person. That's the other thing. I mean, I've had that happen. So yeah, they're existing, but they're existing in another realm. I think,
Sorry,
I just want to
Harry.
say real quick that I think the reason why we suspect that as well has to go into like the paranormal investigating research side. Because of how the things that we connect and we can measure with equipment there, and saying, okay, I think they're made up. They're obviously made up something different than we are. And so I look at quantum physics and quantum entanglement a lot in looking at the ghosts that way.
Yeah. It's really interesting as well, because again, as a medium, I don't know if you're aware of doorways, especially in the house, where it seems to be an entry and exit point for entities or loved ones, however we call them, or interdimensional beings, depending on the experience. So have you, I mean, again, there's been, I guess science isn't picked up on these things. I mean, it's a shame, isn't it? Because we are aware of these things, but there's been no real scientific proof of their existence.
Right. I believe that there are, I would say, portals.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there are like these, as again, from the psychic medium side of things, there are these energy portals. They're like highways. There's a location here in Wisconsin that at one time goes all the way back to like our Western, period, like late 1800s. And then it was a brothel and all these types of things. In the basement there, and this is not the only location, I find it fascinating. You can have psychic medium after psychic medium go through there at completely different times. And all of us, or most that I'm aware of there and other places, will pick it up. We'll be like, I don't know what's going on, but right here, it's just like an energy highway. And that's where we feel they're entering, coming in and out of. Those can be a little dangerous I think, to be honest, because they are like an open door. And that means anything with any type of intention, good or bad, can come through.
Okay, so would that? I mean, okay. So I did an in-person circle on Monday, and I had three ladies that had sat for physical mediumship, and I noticed in a very quick time there was a lot of people coming in and around them very quickly because of their own power. Do you feel that we can also, so for example, poltergeist, it is said that that they're centered around a specific person within the home that potentially could have an open energy that creates the energy of the pot or attracts it to that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for me, a poltergeist, I attribute it to a human agent
Yeah,
more times than not,
yeah,
in the sense of their own energy, for lack of a better way of saying it, bleeds off. And generally it's going to be the negative. It's when there's something chaotic and very usually emotional, negative emotional going on. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, so it does make sense to me what you're saying on that.
yeah. Yeah, because that's quite unusual. Because I do wonder some hauntings are connected to the people, because that's another area of physical mediumship. I interviewed a gentleman, Leonard Young, lovely man, who friends of his witnessed Gordon Higginson when a little sailor boy came out of the cabinet through ectoplasm.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, it's on again. It's guys, you can check it out on the channel. But it's and then this little boy went back into the cabinet, and apparently the boy had passed 2 years before from a drowning. He went to the parent that was sitting in circle, and
Wow.
his cabinets are tiny that Gordon was sitting in to create the energy. And then this man in a wheelchair came out and went over to a loved one. It's just like you just again, I mean, the power
Wow.
and the phenomena is just something else. So I wonder if there's also a connection that we're able to bridge that connection. It's a very interesting concept.
I mean, part of this too, we have to remember is free will and choice
Mm,
on our part and their part. And it's interesting you brought up about the little boy because I did a case, and as I always try to tell people is human ghosts, well, pretty much other types of entities as well, but humans that are attracted to person, place, thing, like a noun, person, place, or thing, and circumstance.
yeah,
And a quick, for instances, I worked on a case here in there were sometimes large parcels of land that were bought up and very houses that are very similar, right? In the same, they look identical, maybe different coloring on the siding or brick or something on the outside. So I had worked on this case, and one of the things, now they had something separate going on, but one of the things that was happening is the adult son had seen a pair of eyes, red eyes as he described it, but eyes in the closet and the other types of activity. Um, in the process, I found that two doors down, two houses down from them, a little boy had died. He
oh,
was had been abused and died in his closet. Um, and what had happened is that this is a young child, as far as right, there's certain knowledge and where do I go? He was drawn to them because it looked like his bedroom, maybe furniture different, but the house looked the same. It looked like him, and it was a nice family. It was a good family.
yeah,
And so he was attracted to that because it made him feel comfortable and safe. And so, yeah, they get attracted for different reasons or come in. But you have a choice. They have a choice if they want to do that. There also is an evolution, just like we learn here in life from birth on, we constantly, hopefully, are learning.
yeah,
And, as individuals, that same thing happens on the other side.
yeah.
I had a very narcissistic parent while living here in our realm when they went over, and it was like a check-in because remember their time is not the same as ours,
Yeah.
um, and watched her slowly evolve and learn. you know, what was going on. And it was interesting. It was emotional for me as I would keep going back for the readings with her, watching this development, but watching her really raise up her spirit, her frequency, you know, and not be that narcissistic person that she was here anymore. But initially she was. But again, it is somewhat of a choice. You can what's there we have an old expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you
Yeah,
can't make it drink.
absolutely. Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. Krish has asked a really good question. Hi, Krish. Have you come across a person or persons who were allegedly possessed by a ghost or spirit?
Yes, I have. It's interesting because the case was I went in, it was somebody else's investigation that I was called
Yeah.
in as the psychic medium.
Okay.
And so it was really useful that I was, because when I went in, they were holding, the two adults in the house were holding back on information. But the one thing that immediately I observed more so, there was um, influence over the mom of the house, but the dad, holy cow, he was just so affected by this.
Really?
And what had happened is the adult son, as I felt and then got them to say, the parents, was the adult son had been in the basement and been kind of partying, you know, doing, you know, alcohol, probably some drugs involved, and decided to do Ouija with his friends.
Wow.
And they brought something in that was very negative. And it was affecting it was affecting him so greatly. Um, I did, pushing this to the end, go through and do a cleansing on the house and on them. And it ended with this man. It was this, you know, kind of big, burly, strong man. And I watched some of the male team members there, like, what is going on? Where he was just, he was in my arms, just sobbing, crying
Wow.
from the cert release.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was a band-aid. It was a band-aid to the situation, because this was something that was going to have to be repeated and more done on their part. And how it ended, I can't tell you, because they moved. They
Oh,
literally moved from the house, and the people who did the investigation did not, we don't know what happened with them.
so we hope and pray they're okay.
Yeah, yeah, I really do. I really do. You know, because here's the thing. A lot of times things are going to stay with the house, but sometimes they're going to follow, right? We know
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
attach to people.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened with them.
Because I know that it's Hollywood, but there was a film in the 80s called Entity. That's, I'm showing my age now, so sorry about that. But they actually cryogenically frozen this entity in, supposedly, in a sports hall. It was doing particularly horrible things to a lady, but it was supposed to be based on a true story. And they
You know
and
what? I don't remember that. I wish I did, so I knew exactly which you were
Yeah, I'm sure.
talking.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere. It's called Entity, and they cryogenically, if I can get my tongue around that, it froze this object in a sports hall. Now it was very large. Whether that would be possible, I think we're kind of going down the route of Hollywood. But it's interesting because it was supposedly said that it did follow her. That the real story, it followed her, and she ended up living out her days in a nunnery. But if you ever come,
Wow.
but if you ever come across, again, I don't know if how much fact was in that. But if you ever come across people that haven't been able to get help, do you believe that people can't be helped with this stuff?
No, I do think that they can be helped. There are some, it depends. Here's the thing. I guess it sort of depends on what we mean by that. Because you could go into extreme cases like those who do have had some sort of demonic oppression, possession.
Yeah,
And again, if I'm using the word demonic, it's one of those things, I'm describing a set of characteristics and behavior that most closely resembles what we would know and
yeah,
identify as that.
yeah,
So with that, um, the sad part is that people tend to think that when you perform an exorcism, they're gone. And here's the thing, they may be gone, but it's consistent. It's usually, and this is going back to the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, that it's not a one and done. This is going to be something you're going to have to diligently address, probably for the rest of your life in some one way or another. And the problem with it is if a person is under an oppression or possession and their body dies,
right,
we think, oh, they're released. Why we would think, some people would think that, I don't know, because it wasn't the body they were after. They were controlling that, manipulating it, but they were after the core energy, the soul.
So could that on some, sorry, Mary, but she's so fascinating. But could that be on some level a karmic thing? That this, what we term as demonic, could actually be a soul that's really angry with this person from a previous life?
Well, you're right. That kid could easily be mistaken because you just have really nasty, rotten people out there, right?
Absolutely.
That are just mean. And just because something is very negative does not mean it's demonic. You know what I mean? Because you could have somebody who is killed somebody, some just really horrible. And that does not mean, and they're going to pass away. Guess what? They're still going to be like that. And they're generally, they can even affect other people who have passed over that are good people and kind of keep them hostage in a house situation, So yeah, it does not have to be. And here's the thing, demonic possession is so rare, much more rare than a lot of television people may want to indicate, because it makes for good television.
It does make for good TV. Yeah, when people's heads start to turn around, and you're not sure what the chiropractor is going to say about your neck after that, but it's gonna cost a lot of money to put that right. So these things are very rare, and I do not want to create fear amongst people sitting at home watching this. It is a very rare thing, and again, but is there some kind of responsibility with the person that's receiving this experience, for a better word, rather than treatment?
Responsibility, how?
I'm just going to cut for it. Just say, did they bring it on to themselves?
Was
it, are they a bad person? Are they suffering with, forgive me for saying this, guys, I'm just trying to look at every possibility. Is there a mental health issue? Has the person, because this is something that I found, people can have negative experiences that have also been abused as a child.
You know what? All of the things you said, I just wanted to answer and go, yes, because I think it's a mistake for us to say it is this one or two or maybe three things. There's multiple reasons, right? It's very specific circumstances that are going on. So yeah, it really could be all of what you said as an example.
Yeah, Cindy's just asked a quick question. Hi, Cindy. I'll say quick question. It's going to be a big one, but thank you for this, Cindy. Would you say that astral projection is part of the fifth dimension, as we are known to be present with spirit?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think it's probably a little tricky because maybe some people's understanding may be a little bit different of what that fifth dimension means. But yeah, I do, because we are traveling in spirit and we are traveling beyond. We have to be, somewhat in another dimension to be able to look upon yourself as a third person, or other people, because, right, when you're first doing that, you can look down, you could even see yourself. So you are now in that kind of feeling of being in, third person. So yeah, absolutely. I would say that it is.
An astral projection, some people won't understand what that is. In your understanding, for me personally, I understand it's coming out just before the sleep state, that you can somehow control that. Well, their mind is just dropping off, the body's just dropping off, but the spirit is still awake. Some people have talked about a rising up out of the body. Some people struggle because I've tried it and the heart just races. I'm back down again. So
Yeah.
some people can do it naturally and just travel, which is wonderful.
I think you're right. I think there's a natural and understandably natural fear because we understand that separation and there's just that human survival, right? Instinct to, well, wait, this is unknown, and you just go back to what is familiar, comfortable, safe, which would be the body,
Yes.
you know. And so, yeah, there are can be different interpretations. To me, astral projection, you know, it's an out of body experience. And here's the thing, it is really similar to near death experience as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the soul, the spirit, you know, however, how you want to phrase it, leaving the body. And you are traveling into another dimension to be able to observe, to interact, maybe learn at different times. And so, yeah, those to me are very all closely related.
Yeah, and some people talk about almost like a cord that brings them back to the body,
Yeah.
which I find quite interesting. But then some people can travel quite freely. I know of a story of a lady that used to go across Hampstead Heath in London at night time. Her father taught her to project as a child. It's very interesting,
Wow.
is it? I
You
mean,
know, I
sorry, go
think the
on.
cord, excuse me, I think the cord might be there for some people as a safety.
Yeah,
And that's why some people have it and some people
yeah,
don't. It's a, you know, a line, a safety line,
yeah,
that type of thing.
absolutely, absolutely. Because there's the whole concept of not coming back. What if I can't come back? And maybe that's what
Right.
stops the person in the first place from projecting. But it's an interesting phenomenon. Guys, I also want to take the opportunity for those guys at home watching. Mary and I spoke about shadow people. Now, I've noticed in around the Norfolk area, a lot of people have been asking me that question. What is this shadow that I see? What is this? And it seems to be around what I've termed the shadow people. And when I watched one of your interviews, Mary, you were talking about the shadow people as well. We'd love to know about your experiences if you've had any at all. Robin's also asked a quick question. What about your dog able to either embody an angel to protect against demonic attack or a dark spirit, as well as the dog was stuck frozen like mid-stance, laying down to the eyes were going crazy? Hmm, not sure on that one, Robin. That's an interesting one. I mean, there could be all sorts of stuff going on there. He could have even taken something. My friend's dog took a substance and it kind of went a bit strange. So I do wonder.
You know, I I will say this. I again, it's like to protect against the demonic attack, where I'm going to not address that portion because it is such a rarity. Again, we're more times than not, we're just talking about a really negative person
Yeah,
that's going to do it. But embody, you know, what about your dog able to either embody an angel? Well, actually, it would be the opposite, wouldn't it? An angel, some type of sentient being would enter in to embody the dog. The dog's not going to embody.
yeah.
So, um, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concepts that
Yeah.
are in the question.
The problem is this world. Anything, you've got to have an open mind to all things. You can't just, because there's so much stuff that happens. Okay, there has to be a level of common sense. Not everything is going to be a ghost or an experience, but there is some really interesting phenomena out there. I mean, I was talking on the phone to someone the other day, and there was almighty bang right next to me. There was nothing there. The person on the phone heard it, and I just said, "Welcome to my world," you know. So,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's so much different phenomena that goes on. Some can be explained. I mean, I often hear people talking about loud noises around them, or bangs, or experiences. Any idea, Mary, what they could be?
Before I answer that, can I make one more comment on that? Because you were
Sure.
talking about when we were saying with dogs,
Yeah.
because I do think, and this is going to sound really strange, but I have had that experience that I would swear to was a person that had channeled through my this was a personal experience, my own dog. Um, and it was a matter of trying to, this is long before I was involved in any of this. So I was young and I had a much older brother that had passed away. And he had come by, and it had to do with like the screen door opening, and the front door and hearing the noises and all kinds of that types of things.
Yeah.
But to push this along to a certain point, at that point in my life, and this is despite still having abilities, I think this is why, because I was frightened of it then, like and I remember at one point going, his name was Bill. I was like, I love you, Bill, but I'm telling you right now, if you appear here, I'm going to have a heart attack and I'm going to be on the other side with you. And it was my
Yeah.
brother, but and not that it was just, I still had so much fear back then.
Yeah.
So as a young person. And so at one point I had the bedroom door open and I had come up and I left the light on, and my dog, I could see and hear her tail wagging. She was greeting somebody she knew that was
Oh,
coming up the stairs. Then the dog came into the room and she just acted very bizarrely. And I'm in bed and she put her head and she just sat at the bed and just kept looking and looking and staring at me. And I'm like, and again, maybe, at that point, some of the intuitives came in,
yeah.
and I went through this whole thing with my brother, at which point I'm like, okay, I just sort of turned away from her. And as I turned away, I literally heard his voice. And he started to say into my ear, Mary, I love you. And he got about halfway through the love, and I snapped around to look. Nobody was there, at which point the dog moved her head and just went curled up in a little ball next to the bed and went to sleep. So, I
Oh,
mean, I'm condensing this all down, but it was a very strange experience that I don't, right? Will I ever know? No. But I feel like he helped use the dog somehow to get my attention, to listen. Um, but anyway, I just thought I would, mention that.
yeah.
All
No,
right.
that's a wonderful experience. Sarah's just put a comment on as well. Hi, Sarah. I have a shadow person in my house. Walks the landing and comes into my bedroom. My dog freezes and stares at it.
If you here, I will say this, don't be concerned. Um, this could be a family member. This could also be, you know, somebody who maybe past lived in the house. Dogs do
Yeah.
animals, right? They have this
Yeah.
capability to have a much better sixth sense, so to say, than
Yeah.
we do naturally. Um, and so it's going, if the dog is not maybe wagging the tail and feeling like it's somebody and it feels freezing, you have to remember they're animals just like we are humans, and something very unusual is happening. You can get that like kind of startled, take a step back. What is going on here?
Yeah.
So don't be frightened by your dog freezing and staring. But yeah, the shadow people could be, someone that's passed on. You could also be experiencing dimensional crossover from
Yeah.
somebody who lived in the house previously.
I was going to say when you explain, yeah, so it could actually be someone who's just visiting the house. It could be on that level, or it's just we only can perceive it uh, as a shadow.
Right. There's a couple different things. One is that shadow person could be an entity human entity that doesn't have enough energy to manifest into a full-bodied apparition. I'm glad, Sarah. And the other one is that we start getting into some of that scientific bizarreness of, well, it also could be dimensional crossover of the time and space. A past owner is going about their business, and for flashes of moments of our time, so to say, where that dog is picking up, they're going through their emotions. So when what they used to do, what they were doing in the house, in 1949 or 1900 or something.
Yeah. Michelle's asked a great question. Hi, Michelle. Do you believe that a person's negativity can manifest a dark energy entity around them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That to me, that's poltergeist.
Yeah.
Now you can do it intentionally or unintentionally, and more times than not, it's unintentional.
Yeah.
The person does not know that they're doing it, but generally, if the person can get maybe medication or therapy, and I will tell you this: if you move the person 9 out of 10 times, your poltergeist activity will stop.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But they are where they are. They are who they are. It's difficult, isn't it? But do you think that also connects to mental health as well? People that are depressed,
Yeah.
but how do they recognize that within themselves? It isn't no kind of self, it's not even recognized within the mental health, itself.
Yeah, I've worked on a couple cases, and like one of the cases, the woman was an adult daughter, had moved back into the house, and all this strange activity started to kick up. She had gone through a very abusive relationship and was going through a very difficult divorce. She was just, be so stressed out, and having panic attacks, all this kind of stuff. I will tell you that again, how that ended is once she got on medication and was getting some therapy talk to help work through it, the activity stopped, and, she turned into, her normal happy self again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that type of thing, and she had no clue. You can tell a person as a psychic medium, kind of like, I hate to break this to you, not that you would say it that way, but but you really are the source of this. And somebody's go, well, why would I want to do this and scare myself? Why would I want to do this and have something scare my children, maybe? They're not in control. This energy, this negative energy can bleed off and not literally, but take on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Right. And you can get these then just kind of like how I refer to them, of these dark masses or dark clouds that just are thriving on the chaos. And the more chaos and maybe disharmony that is in that house, the more energy it is being fed.
Yeah.
And so it keeps happening. It's a real
Yeah.
vicious circle.
Yeah. Because is it true that sometimes even dark matter, or matter is probably the wrong word, dark energy, can be, can have unconscious energy that's maybe, we think every thought form or every thought that we have is an energy. So therefore, if we're going around all day, every day, oh, I'm never lucky, I'm this, I'm that, you're creating this around you, this energy, this almost like a little cyclone of downward spiraling, if you like, of energy. So how do we, I always believe in keeping positive. There's always a silver lining in every dark thing. Mind you, depending on what happens, okay, just touch wood as I say that, okay, just in case I get a speeding ticket tomorrow, so or a parking ticket, but yeah, it's really important to keep your energy high and keep from yourself going into those places. And the world as it is today is a difficult place. It's not an easy place.
I've heard you before use the term thought form, and it's something that, for whatever reason, is not as commonly used. And I've started using it more because it is a perfect, to me, explanation, thing to say and how to phrase something. Um, because that we as human beings have so much more capability than
Yeah.
we realize,
Yeah.
and so this energy that we can put forth. You look at things like people who do meditation or people who might do a vision board. These are my goals, this is where I want to be. But they are focusing their attention towards something in a positive manner. If you do the same thing and it's negative, you're going to produce. I know, and you know this too, Paul, I'm sure. How many psychic mediums you know have problems with electronics,
Oh, absolutely.
right? It
Yeah.
just things go haywire and crazy. It took me a long time because I do have this very analytical, logical mind as I was getting into all of this. If saying, okay, I'm having a really bad day, things are just one thing after another. It's just getting, going wrong. It's just snowballing into this,
Yeah.
and it took me a while to give into it. Not that I knew, like it's part of me knew better, but I had to give into it. Um, and what I gave into is realizing, Mary, it's you,
Yeah.
and so when that starts happening now, it's been for years now, but it happens now.
Yeah.
I pull back and I go, okay, Mary, pull everything in and down. You need to first rein in this negative, that's this negative energy, and then take the breaths and start to raise my own vibration, my own frequency.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, it will keep happening.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, well, why? Why are all these horrible things, this day turning out like this? Because we have a part in it just as much as other people do. So that's where we kind of have to get into a little bit of a protection, or reinforce our own energy, because other people have a free will too, and
Yeah.
they can shed that negativity onto us
And it's
as
yeah,
well.
and that's a great segue into the last show. Hi, Jordan, if you're watching, he's been on air for quite some time, but there was a question about someone psychically attacking someone else with their intention, and
Yeah.
so energy is energy. It's so much out there. What Gandhi talked about, what your thoughts and become your actions and your deeds. So I'm not saying you've got to walk around being an angel, but I'm saying you do have to kind of watch where your mind is going. The power from within is so important, and I think your universe is created from.
You've
Oh, you just.
locked up on my side. Yeah. I don't know if I
Oh
locked
yeah,
up.
so I got you back. You're back.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, I just lost you for a second then. I had that heart-stopping moment that maybe you'd gone into a porthole.
Isn't it funny? We're talking about it, and then
Yeah,
this happens, and I'm hardwired into the internet,
yeah, me too.
and it's like they're
Yeah,
like just messing
yeah.
with
Just
us.
let us. Yeah, let's see how they hold that. Let's see their negative and positive actions now. Rhonda's asked a great question. Are shadow people the same as thinking you have seen someone out of the corner of your eye?
Very well could be. Most people do see shadow people out of the corner of your eye. And by the way, I'll just add a little science thing in there. Most people don't realize our peripheral vision, we have something called rods and cones in our eyes. And the cones are our color and our clarity, our center vision. But when you're looking out of your peripheral and you sort of see the shadow, what our instinct, right? Our brains are going to say, oh, we
Yeah.
need to turn and look at it so we can see it clear. And then you don't see anything. But our peripheral vision sees slightly into the infrared range, which is
Oh,
interesting
I didn't
because
know that.
yeah, so isn't that kind of cool? So there is a little bit of a science to back up why that may happen, why people experience that so often.
So I heard a medium say that what you should do, Rhonda, if you get that, and Rhonda works in a really old hall. I'm not sure if you're still there, Rhonda. And we investigated that a few months ago. It's at Blow Norton Hall. It's beautiful, 14th century, I believe. And there's a lot of activity there, Mary, as well. But unfortunately, we couldn't get internet because we was going to do it live, and we struggled with internet connection. But But yeah, I mean, so if I was told if you don't focus, if you're aware of it in the corner of your eye, don't focus. Don't. We all go, oh, what was that? We can't help it. But if
Right.
you're aware of it, don't do it. Let it build. See what you get. That would be
Do
quite interesting.
do you want to hear something interesting? We were
Yes,
talking
please.
about what do people see psychic mediums, and I started just curiosity when I was interviewing people at a conference, and was like, well, what do you experience when you say I see somebody or this or that? What are you seeing? One of the things for me is I see them slightly in my peripheral, not completely, so what I can do is I can go look and go, if I put my own foot, I'm like, all right, I know I'm holding four fingers up by
Yeah.
still looking straight forward. So I can give you descriptions and stuff. So, but other people see it differently. Some people see, I've even had one person tell me that they saw things in black and white. They saw the ghost. I was like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So the same thing for everybody, because everybody has certain amount of ability that they can tap into. That seeing it peripheral, I think, is a very natural thing for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Guys, we're going to take a break in a minute. And when we're going to come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about shadow people, but we're also going to ask Mary about UFOs experiences, but also the experience that Mary had whilst researching Bigfoot. So we're going to go to a break any second now. If Richard is still there, Richard's busy.
Introducing the SPTV app, your digital spiritual guide for an enlightening journey like no other. Immerse yourself in a world of audio and visual content crafted to inspire, educate, and entertain. Seek guidance with our card of the day, choosing up to 6 cards for personal insights. Enhance your daily life with our wellness section, featuring nutritious recipes, affirmations, and balanced living tips. Explore our spiritualism section for a deep understanding of the religion, its principles, and spiritual answers. Unravel the secrets of the clairs and broaden your spiritual horizon. Easily find local readers, therapists, centers, or churches with our comprehensive directory. Stay connected with live broadcasts, check our schedule, and get to know our insightful presenters. Delve into the meanings of angel numbers, crystals, and a comprehensive list of divination meanings. All of this and more, available for free on the SPTV app. Download now at sptv.uk/app and start your journey with your digital spiritual guide.
Help Spiritual Psychics TV grow our TikTok channel. Connect with us at SPTV UK. We're on a journey to reach our next milestone, and we need your help. Follow us today and support us going live. Imagine getting personalised readings, discovering your card of the day, and so much more. Don't miss out on the opportunity to explore new adventures with us. Follow, engage, and transform. Join our growing community at Spiritual Psychics TV with @SPTV UK on TikTok.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Spiritual Talk here on SPTV. Just to remind you though, guys, we are not on tomorrow. Our Richard, our producer, he is moving home, so there could be a broadband issue for a few days. So bear with him. We'll all send him our support, although it's not my favourite thing to do, Richard. So I wish him the best with moving home. So look out for details and posts when we're back on live. And Richard has promised to get him back up and running as soon as possible. So we wish him well in his new move. And Richard just told me he's only got 14 packs left. If you want to buy some cards, now's your chance. But there's only 14 left. Anyway, on with the interview. Hi, Mary. Welcome back.
Hi.
MJ's just put a great question up. Is a ghost potentially yourself from another time or dimension?
Oh, a doppelganger. Yeah. Absolutely. Honestly, this could kind of open us up into the ufology side of things.
Okay.
Is it,
Yes,
and
please.
and the reason for that is because you're looking we a lot of times going back to shadow people, I tend to refer to them, some of them, as watchers. There's no activity, there's no EVP, nothing's to be had other than just seeing a shadow.
Yeah.
And the ones that literally are lurking in a corner of a room, they're not the ones that are like following you all over the place.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wonder if this has to do with um, either other intelligent life forms out there or ourselves
Yeah.
in the future. We could be doing this in the future. There is an experiment that is held by I know there's other universities, but like universities here, Cornell University,
Yeah.
MIT, very reputable. They have done experiments in time cloaking. And it sounds really weird. So it's essentially cloaking events in time. Now, they only can do it for something like ridiculously short, like 120th of a second or nanosecond or something. But the interesting part is we can do it.
Wow.
So then let's add in eventually, and probably, and much, much sooner than people think, we are going to be into quantum computing. So things that took us 10 years to figure out, to learn, is going to be done in a day.
Wow.
So as our intelligence and abilities exponentially just keep, getting more and more and greater, and combine that with the idea of what if there has been a further development of this time cloaking thing where it's done by a bending of light and lensing and gravitational fields, by the way, that it's almost like we see them as shadows, but they can observe us.
Right.
And so essentially it literally could be us. If you were to really go in left field, I'm going to go in left field here with this, and saying that what if some of the watchers that we see, when you say, well, maybe they're us, if they have that ability to do that, and dimensionally they're able to cross over, but not literally, they just can observe. That may explain why sometimes we have these experiences, and they very well could be us.
Yeah.
Maybe not us, me, it could be me in particular, but other humans in the future. Because remember, all the time is occurring at once. It's just existing each year. Kind of think of each year as its own dimension and space. So, you've got year one and year 5022 all occurring side by side. And so, yeah, I think that ghosts certainly could be ourselves or possibly other humans in the future, that have this knowledge and ability.
Or interdimensional beings. But there was
Right.
also, now, was there any truth in the Philadelphia experiment? And I don't want to cause any controversy.
It's funny you brought that up because I just landed up teaching about this 2 nights ago. We covered it. And I said that the thing with the Philadelphia story, first of all, involving Tesla. Tesla was way ahead of his time. And there were some really legit experiments that were done before that story occurred that give it credence that it could be. There are people who were witnessing it on the shores. There were sailors that did many, I think it was many years later, a couple that did write a book about it. So you, of course, have to question, was this,
Wow.
because they wanted notoriety and money or something like that. And they just indulged and made the story up or indulged it. That's
Yeah.
possible. But there were enough people at the time that for me, it remains plausible. I think that it could have happened because of some other previous tests done by Tesla, which was the technology involved in the Philadelphia experiment.
So those at home that don't know the Philadelphia experiment, it was, if I'm right in saying, it was a battleship, full complement of sailors, and it was allegedly moved from one place through time to another place. Now, the legend has it, or the story has it, that the sailors were caught in the bulkhead. They wasn't alive.
Yeah, what we see it here as is when you're saying moved, what was known as it disappeared. It disappeared from sight. And then it came back.
Yeah.
And when the ship reappeared, there were some crewmen that were caught, fused in between the deck and themselves. So I mean, it actually sounds really horrible because they're probably being crushed to death.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that they might have been standing and when it on a certain place when the ship disappeared, and when it came back, now their legs were under the boards and the upper body was there. It was very strange. Yeah, a lot of fusing of things going on of
So
material.
that's so fascinating. But then it comes into, I mean, I think of the Bermuda Triangle. We've all heard of the Bermuda Triangle. Do you have a theory on that? Is there a theory of the Bermuda Triangle? Again, is that an interdimensional?
I have a feeling with that there is, because there's also like this certain areas, right, that are kind of hot spots, we'll call them, of this type of activity. It's interesting, right? Because lately I haven't heard anything in a very, very long time about the Bermuda Triangle. But
Oh, have they? Oh, Richard just said scientists have figured it out. So Richard has just said that was the scientists have worked it out and they've found certain frequencies that create the anomalies. Well, that's really interesting.
yeah, because there's actually even been some things on television, which is I'm shaking my head listening because I'm like, yeah, exactly. But it's still interesting because it's almost like a vortex of
Yeah.
of energy that
Because yeah,
and
sorry,
it
mate.
has to be gravitational in there as well because of how electromagnetic, because of how it's affecting the equipment.
Yeah.
And then essentially when the people are disappearing, it's not like they're, walking into a wall and they disappear into the wall. They're disappearing because they have no instrumentation anymore. Or the instrumentation is telling them something completely different. So they are either going miles and miles off course or literally crashing into the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because there's other points. And I joke locally, the gentleman who lives locally, he's been here all his life. He says where we live, there's a little tiny Bermuda Triangle. Everything seems to grow. It's absolutely paradise for certain things around here. And I'm not a gardener, and I've got a beautiful garden now because of that. So it's not my green fingers, they're not green. But there is this, all joking aside, is there these hot spots around the Earth's energy that could, and then could they also be interdimensional that were, and this leads us into UFO stuff, because I'm not so sure that UFOs, if there is life out there, and I personally believe I've had a few strange experiences, that there is something. But I think if they're going to travel here, surely they'd come interdimensionally. It'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad because sometimes I think that people think like you can use that the term and the thought of interdimensional maybe too much, but it's true. It is interdimensional. Whether we're talking about Bigfoot or ghosts or some type of ET, that alien, in case, depending upon people's terminology, that it's interdimensional. And not everybody agrees with that, but I do tend to agree with it, that I do think, something is interdimensional that
Yeah.
way. And and how that's going to affect us here and make a difference. It is. Sorry, I was distracted. I was started to look. I was having an attention deficit and looked at the question while I'm talking.
Yeah, no, Christian's asked a great question actually. And she's asked, she kind of brought us back to when we talked about people being possessed. And she's asked if you ever had to do that to try and help release somebody from an entity like that.
I have had to, and here was the interesting, I will be very honest with you right now. The first time I did it, um, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, meaning I had never done it before, and I'd never experienced it with anyone, you know. But it was, as a paranormal investigator, I had the pleasure, and I say pleasure because it taught us all so much and really helped the family as well. I was able to go into well, it was haunted, historical museum nearby my home. And I was able to do this over like 4 to 5 year period, just keep going back and going
Yeah.
back. Shortly after we started there, we had caught an EVP of a female in the kitchen area. And it was a woman, and it was this very dragged out help, like help kind of a thing. I heard that, my heart just was like, oh my gosh, somebody, for whatever reason, is stuck here.
Hmm.
And as we learned, when I went back, we asked again. Last time I was here, someone said they needed help. How I phrased it was, do people here, some of you here need help? And the EVP, the phantom voice, responded, just me.
Oh, wow.
So I was catching interactions from her parents and other family members, but this youngest female, who was the last resident of the house, was earthbound. Why she could not cross over. So I did go through some processes to help her do that. And what was really fascinating is, how are we going to know logically? How would you know it worked? Well, this house, this historical museum, I used to call it EVP Haven. You could go in there for an hour and you would easily, in an hour, come out with at least 20 EVPs.
Wow.
It was just so active that way. We went back, and the next 3 times we went back, complete silence. Nothing. So, and I remember telling my team members at the time, I'm going to go do this. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is going to be bittersweet for us, because when I do this, I believe her family is there with her, only there because they're there for her.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that's what happened.
Wow.
And that was the only way they could let us know, right, in a human logical versus intuitive psychic way, right?
Yeah.
That it was successful, was silence, radio silence,
Yeah.
that it had worked, and
Yeah,
she
that's
moved on.
amazing. That's amazing. Why do you think we get stuck then, or people get stuck? Why do you think that? I mean, again, it's
I think it's again very individual cases. Sometimes it depends on what it is, because sometimes people can get caught in a death state, sadly, and they do seriously need help to get out of that so that they can move on. I think sometimes there is some choices made initially, and then because they did not cross over per se into a higher, realm, higher place, that they can, that they can start getting into confusion.
Wow. Okay.
And there is a lack of the ability to properly help themselves. I will tell you one thing that is actually it's disturbing to me anyway. Here in the States, we have, you have tons of, I wish I could go by you, but haunted locations because we're such a young country, right? But, and one of the places I've seen this about 3 times now. And I've heard about it more than that from other places where there might be some place that was they were kind of combination here, sadly, over 150 years ago or 100 years ago, where it was a poorhouse. They might have referred to it as an insane asylum, all these not nice, derogatory titles, but on there.
Sure.
So one of these locations, the person who bought it and owns it placed a sign around on each floor. It was a 3-floor building that said, "This is the spirit's home. Do not try to remove them." And I thought, that's not for him to decide.
No,
for us to decide. Why would you? Maybe some of these entities, humans, these ghosts needed help. Let's offer the help if they want. Because here's the thing: once you cross over, they have the ability to come back and forth on their own free accord, their free will.
Yeah.
But let's give them the option, because I feel like what that sign said to me was, "Do not remove the spirits. This is my moneymaker."
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It was not. I think we need to offer the help. If they need it, they will take advantage of it. If they are there of their own free will, then that's it. That's the end of it, right?
Yeah.
But give them the option, the choice.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Mary, we've been going for 1 hour and 20 minutes already. Okay, I wanted to touch on UFOs as well because it's such an interesting subject. Can you quickly just touch on some of the unique experiences you've had in UFO investigation, please?
It's a kind of a crossover. First of all, MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network, they actually, by the way, have a department for Bigfoot.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting? Because of the interdimensional we were talking about. Most people who are into, ufology don't readily know that is something that's looked into as well.
Yeah.
One of the areas when I used to go up to it was a 55,000 acre Kettle Moraine state park, forest. And in that area, there has been everything sighted from, I have not had a Bigfoot sighting, but people have. There has been Native American ghosts. There have been EVP. There has been UFO sightings. And when I say UFO, I'm kind of particular when I'm investigating. Outdoor is really hard. It's really tricky because it's hard to keep controls, right, on things. But we looked up and I had saw something moving, and the person that I was with, and he's like, that thing is moving so fast at the distance from us and the way it was bolting across the sky. So we have apps on our phones now. So we can do 2 things right away. One, let's look at the traffic. We can have a flight tracker that lets you know if any crafts, at least any registered crafts, are in the area.
Yeah.
There were or not. Second to that is get something that's going to involve astronomy. And so that you can look and see, are there any satellites passing through? Are there any iridium flares? Anything, that. And in this particular night, there was none. What was interesting is we had other strange experiences before that with equipment failure. We're using a FLIR, a thermal camera, and you can that will times has a GPS time and timestamp on it, both of them as well. Things we found later is the signal kicked off and we'd been going there. I went there for these night hikes for a 5-year period. That was the first and only time 60 miles away that when the video was taken, it bounced the signal. So there were other strange things happening this night when we landed up seeing this UFO. UAPs as far as, but really more in the, we use that terminology here a lot of times, but unidentified aerial phenomena, but really referring to more like light anomalies. Those things as well. So yeah, the whole night was just a bunch of bizarreness going on, ending with seeing the UFO.
I mean, in terms of the UFO, surely something like that would be flagged up by the military. They'd pick up something on,
You would think. And that was one of the things, by the way, I did check as well, because I wanted to see, and that's what everybody has to kind of think, right? Is we have aircrafts here in the United States that the public is often almost 10 years behind the technology of our awareness for security reasons. So I thought, all right, what do we have? Are there any military, Air Force, so on, around that area? And one of their planes, and I cannot remember it now, could go it would be really fast. It could get in our area, in and out of the area in, a minute from the Mach speed it would be at. But that's something that, again, is a little hard for us, right, as the public, because this is not going to show up on the registered crafts, flights. So we wouldn't know 100%. But we have to look at it as it's an unidentified, right, flying object, unidentified aerial phenomena. So we cannot be 100% sure in saying, okay, that was, there's ETs inside of it flying it. We won't know at this point. However, there's a show, Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, here in the States. It is the only show I watch. And it is phenomenal because there are real scientists on there. They're doing real experiments, and they are having some really bizarre phenomena happen.
Oh, sorry, Mary, can you repeat that name?
It's The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
It's interesting because it got that name because there has been things going on there back to when the Native Americans were on the land.
Oh,
and they were like, oh, it's a skinwalker, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But this is really all on.
Oh, I've heard that saying. What is a skinwalker? They're not particularly nice, am I right in saying?
The skinwalkers are well, it depends on the tribes too. The Native American, it could be witch or witch-like, and a lot of times wearing the animal headdress of the Native Americans, so they would look like half human, half man, and some of them say that they are. So that's where that name, the name of the ranch, came from. I guess a slang version of it. But as they got in there, during the 80s, there was somebody named Bigelow who was doing it. He was working with the government. It was really interesting. Some things were said, and then all of that info just disappeared. It was like shut down. But now the guy who owns the property is working with a lot of very reputable people, and they have some very strange UFO, UAP. There's a triangled area. There happens to be something metal, and they've used everything from LiDAR to, I can't even think of right now all the different equipment that they've used to look at this. They have horrible problems with their equipment malfunctioning, GPS signals bouncing. This is having to do with people flying helicopter over above, or if they're have drones, problems. So in the ground, they did a drilling and they have a really hard time because of the huge uh, and rock rubble of it. It's a lot of weight. They have pulled out flakes of a metal. And what's interesting is this metal contains some of the same things that NASA uses for their spacecrafts. The guy on the show, Travis, he's got a few different degrees. One of them, he was working with NASA. And so he's actually on the show. So there's like, they're like, I love seeing somebody with a science degree like that being like, what is going on? Like just floored by it. It's very fascinating, and very compelling as far as the type of activity and evidence that they're able to gather. They're definitely onto something. I would watch for these guys, and because it's being aired publicly, it's going to be more forthcoming and telling than the study that was done back in the 80s when all the things were secret.
Well, we'll have to see if we can find that. Mary, thank you so much for joining the show today. We can't thank you enough. But one thing I'd like to ask you, what's next? What's coming up next for you?
Right now, the only thing that I'm focusing on is developing some new classes, paranormal studies classes for the college. Due to some personal things going on this summer, I'm kind of lying low. I don't have any conferences planned or lectures. Hopefully that'll pick up in the fall.
Yeah.
So just doing my readings right now. So that's all.
Oh, okay. And how can we find you?
You can go to mediummarymarshall.com or theparanormalmd.com. And you can book a reading there too. And there's information there as well, other information.
Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we can get you over here in the UK, maybe do a live when you're
I
doing an
would love
investigation.
that.
That would be great fun.
That would be wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
A pleasure. It's been a pleasure. And thank you, everybody. Rich has asked if he can squeeze one question in.
Absolutely.
Hi, Donna. This may be a really silly question, but if there is aliens, if they die, would they not go to the spirit world? As if so, would our loved ones, sorry, I'm making a right hash of this, Donna, I'm so sorry. Our loved ones in spirit world will be able to let us know if they are any aliens there. I think my head is just overthinking it. That's an interesting concept.
You know what?
I've got an answer.
I was gonna say I don't, but I have met psychic mediums that do communicate with other worldly beings.
Absolutely. And I had a meditation once and I was connected to a guide, and it was a specific guidance meditation, and I'd kind of gone into this visual where he was behind me, and in front of my vision there was an alien, and I was shocked. And he said, "What, are you that naive to think we're the only life in the universe?" So, and there's been many a story of there was a famous medium, I should look this up, who after 20 years she believed her guide to be a red Indian, and then one day he turned around and said to Mary, to his control, that you're ready to see me as I am now? And she's like, pardon? And he showed himself as an alien.
Interesting. I know, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, she was like, "You lied to me. Why did you do this?" And he just turned around and said, "Well, if I'd have approached you as an alien, would you have worked with me?"
Right. Been like, no.
No.
Yeah.
No.
We don't trust you. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
So not only that, it's the concept of it. I think humanity's only just started to wake up to the ideas that we have, especially in the UK, we're coming out of very strict society like the Victorians in terms of our thinking, religious belief systems. I remember even mentioning deja vu 30 years ago, you were thought was a bit of a woo-woo, a little bit strange. So I think we're starting to explore different concepts, and that can only be healthy.
Yeah, I agree. And that's it. I love the question. It shows, like, just like you said, somebody you're thinking
Yeah.
outside of the box. And in this case, I'm maybe outside of the TV box,
Yeah.
so to say. And that's what helps us evolve and grow as individuals.
There's an interesting gentleman, Donna, called Robert Temple, and he talks about the Syrian mystery and I think it's the Dugan tribe in Africa, and and I am trying to get the gentleman on Spiritual Talk. I really am trying to get a hold of him. But he's released a book called Heaven is Made Up of Plasma, or something like that, very similar. And he's got a whole concept of what heaven is. And also, well, check out the Syrian Mystery. That was his first book. And yeah, then come back and ask some questions, because I know you'll love that.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you everybody that's been watching tonight. We cannot thank you enough. Don't forget, Richard won't be here tomorrow. He's busy moving, so we wish him well, wish him good luck in his new home, on his new adventures, and we will see you all very soon. For now, Mary, thank you so much.
I did a thank you.
Yes.
Sign language. Thank you.
you
It
so
was nice
much.
talking with you.
Hopefully see you in 2 weeks, guys. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us.